Hey, it's Prerak, and today we're adding Puddle lights in our 2016 Polo GT. Puddle lights are pretty common in higher segment cars, and their purpose is just to light up your path around the doorway so that you don't accidentally step into any puddles if there are any. And cars like Skoda, Octavia, both Mark II and Mark III, Skoda Super, Passat, a lot of these cars have puddle lights. So it is very easy to make them look OEM on Polo as well. So let's get straight to the installation and see how they're installed. To remove the ORVM, we need to first remove the door card, which is held in place by 3 T30 Torx screws. 2 under the door handle trim and 1 at the bottom of the door. With the card free from the door, there are a few things to remove: door latch cable, alarm status light, lock and lock button, ORVM knob and the window switches. Further, we need to remove this trim held in place by a Torx T20 screw and a plastic lock. Once removed, it reveals the bolt for the ORVM. But before that, we need to unplug the ORVM and get it free from the door. Unplug its pigtail connector and cut the zip tie holding the harness in place. Once that is free, we can remove the 8mm spline bolt using the correct spline bit and remove the ORVM from the car. We need to take it apart entirely to add a light at the bottom of it. The mirror can be popped out by pulling very carefully on the outer side of it. The cover on top is held in by a couple of locks. Undo those, and with some force this cover will come out as well. With 3 more T20 screws, the front face of the housing can be removed, then the bottom part of it, which holds the indicator assembly as well, can be removed once the connector is unplugged. The puddle light we will be adding will be added in this lower section of the housing. The first thing I noticed while taking apart the ORVM was the amount of Tata logos that there were. It seems like Tata manufactured the ORVMs for the Polo. It's weird to see a logo other than Volkswagen Audi on parts of this car. Anyway, the light we will be using for this mod is an LED replacement housing for a Skoda Superb or Mark II Octavia. This is the smallest housing I could find, but even then it needs to be trimmed to a much smaller size, as the ORVM has zero space inside it. I separated the lens from the housing and started to check where it can fit in the ORVM correctly to provide enough throw of the light outside and clearance inside. This location where the part number is printed was perfect. I started making small cuts and made a triangle. I kept making it bigger and bigger till the lens fit in it. The fitment was great and the lens was flush with the housing as if it was made for this. I took a template of the cut I made on an A4 sheet and replicated the same cut on the other ORVM as well. Once both the ORVMs were cut, it was time to wire them. I took 0.75 square mm wire and routed them through the ORVM just like the factory wires were routed, and soldered them to the LED panel directly, keeping note of positive and negative. The other end of these wires received the correct terminals to go into the ORVM connector. I taped the wires thoroughly so it looks like it came from factory like this. The LED panel was covered with some clear RTV to make it weatherproof. Same RTV was used to glue these housings to the ORVM. This seal will not be as permanent as M-seal, but this was done on purpose, as the LEDs can fail and a replacement might be needed down the years. So using a semi-strong seal was better. The amount of space in the ORVM was so less that even after making these so small, they still had to be shaped slightly more to fit perfectly. After that was done, I gave everything a quick clean and started assembling the ORVMs. And tested them once again before installing them to the car. With the light installed in the rear view mirror, let's understand how we are going to wire it. Now you can see the entire wiring mess. I'm in the process of rewiring half the car. I've done that side entirely. Even the mirror has been wired on that side. Let's ignore this and focus on the door and how to wire it. In the mirror's connector, I've given power to the light by adding these two wires, this black and white, as you can see, number 8 being positive and 9 being negative. So similarly, we need to add that on this side of the connector as well. This is in the car itself, and we need to add two wires here in slot number 8 and slot number 9. And in order to run those two wires till here, we need to follow the harness of the door, which goes through this grommet and comes out through this grommet right here. I've just pulled it out, and we can add those particular wires to this connector with the correct terminals. Now with that, we will finish the door, and then we'll need to move on the inside. We'll need to grab this connector. This is the door connector's female side, and add those two wires here as well, and then we are going to power it through the footwell light. So now I have the wires routed on this side. These are the two terminals for the Puddle light. The rest of the two wires are for the tweeter. I am rewiring it. This connector has two empty slots, so I'm going to add the correct terminals. Add the terminals into this connector, and this will power the tweeters. So I'm doing the same process for them as well, but we are interested in the Puddle light. These are the terminals that will be powering them up. I've taken the wiring through both the grommets, and I've added the terminal to one of them. This is the positive one, so it will go into slot number 8 of this connector. In order to lock the terminals, this connector just has a flap here, which you can just lift up, unlock it with something really thin, and then just lift it up. Now this is ready to accept the correct terminal. We are going to insert this in slot number 8 for positive. It should click into place. Just check if it has. Yes, it is in place. Pull it out. If it doesn't come out, you have inserted correctly. Now we'll add the terminal to the other one, which is the negative. With the mirror connector correctly wired, we can come on this side on the door connector. For these two terminals, we are going to add it in the same 8 and 9 position. These two right here, 8 being positive, 9 being negative. I just made the even number positive and odd number negative, really. That's all I did. So I'll just add these two terminals here. In order to make this connector accept new terminals, you need to lift this pink tab up slightly, pink, purple, slightly up. Just wedge a screwdriver in here, lift it up ever so slightly, so it's in this position, so it can accept new terminals. And once this is done, you just need to remember to wire this in the same slots as well, that is 8 and 9, so they correspond to these pins correctly. I taped all the wiring that I added as neatly as I could and routed it along the stock wiring in the door. These are the terminals needed to wire the female end of the door connector. As you can see, I have fixed the wiring mess by removing some and rerouting rest of the wires I had added previously to this car. Right now, I tabbed into the power and ground of footwell lights and added the correct terminals to them. To add those in the connector, we need to first lift up the tab and pull the other tab up slightly. Then the connector is ready to accept the terminals. Once it was all plugged in, I connected the ORVM before installing to check if everything has been done correctly. And after installing it all back together, this is the final result. So that was all on the topic of adding puddle lights to my car. Now I know a lot of you must be thinking why I didn't add them to the door card at the bottom. I might be adding that in the future, but before that I wish to change these switches, these ones as well. Out of this I want to add out of the GTI and this out of the Passat, and way before that I wish to add ambient lighting over here and in this slot, and I want it to be as OEM as possible, as close to OEM as possible, and I wish to make kits for it as well so everyone can replicate it. With slightly modern buttons over here and some ambient lighting, the car will feel a lot different at night, and the ambient lighting will be visible only in pitch dark conditions, so it won't be very gaudy, it will just be very subtle. And coming to even more switches, I wish to change this entire panel out of the GTS so I have more buttons, because soon I'm changing the seats to Passat seats so that I have heating and ventilation. I originally purchased it for the Laura, but now I wish to add the Polo because this car is a daily driver and such practical stuff is more usable over here. So I wish to add the panel which has more buttons out of the GTI, and then there will be a heating button here, there, and after I get the BCM Max there will be even more options that I can add over here. But we are getting way ahead of ourselves here with the Polo because the Laura is close to completion, so now I'll be spending more time there in order to finish it and get some episodes of the Laura project as well. So for the time being, I'll put a pause to everything that I just mentioned, and all of this will be done in the future but not in the near future. So with time all of this will be done as well, but for now I'll be focused on the Laura to complete it and get the episodes out as well. So that was all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, hopefully in the Laura.